My mom threw me out at 16 so she could raise her new kids. And now that I'm successful, she's demanding I pay for their college. But what happened on my porch that day changed everything forever. I'm 33 now, working in upper management at a company I've been with since graduation. I've busted my ass to get here, but there's still this part of me that sometimes wonders what my life could have been like if my mom had made better choices. She had me at 20. My biological dad, never in the picture. From what she told me later, she gave him the option to stick around, and he didn't even hesitate before bolting. No child support, no arguments, just gone. We lived in this tiny apartment above my grandparents' garage. It wasn't much, but it worked. Honestly, my grandparents were the ones carrying her through that time, helping with me while she finished school and got her physical therapy degree. She juggled school, work, and raising me all on her own. And I'll give her credit for that. She didn't just sit around feeling sorry for herself. Those early years weren't bad. Sure, money was tight, but I didn't notice. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents while she worked or studied. My grandpa loved having me around. Honestly, he probably did more for me than anyone else back then. But my mom still made time for me when she could, reading to me before bed, taking me to the park, little moments that made me feel like I mattered. Everything started to shift when I was around 8. That's when my mom met Leonard at work. At first, Leonard seemed fine. Stable job, normal guy. My mom would say how different he was from the other men she'd dated before. More reliable, more grounded. They dated for a while, and when I was about 11, they got married. Leonard wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't warm either. Polite, yes. Distant, absolutely. He didn't mistreat me, but he didn't try to connect either. I was just there, like part of the furniture. At first, nothing really changed. I was still living with my mom, and now Leonard. It was fine. Not great, but fine. But then, little things started to shift. My mom began focusing more on Leonard, on their life together. Dinners got quieter, less about me and more about them. I'd try to join the conversation, only to be brushed aside like I wasn't even sitting at the same table. At first, I didn't take it personally. I figured she was just excited about her new marriage and trying to make it work. But over time, it became clear I was slowly being pushed out of the picture. So I tried harder. I brought home good grades, helped around the house, did anything I could to show I was still worth noticing. Then, when I was about 12, my mom got pregnant with twins. Everyone was thrilled. I was too, at least at first. I imagined being the cool older brother, helping out with the babies, teaching them things. I even started babysitting for neighbors to practice for when they arrived. But as her pregnancy went on, my mom's attitude toward me shifted even more. She didn't seem to have the time or the interest for me anymore. Everything was about the twins. I told myself it was temporary, that once the babies were born, things would go back to normal. I was wrong. When the twins came along, it was like I vanished overnight. I get it. Babies need constant care and attention. I wasn't expecting things to stay exactly the same, but this was different. It wasn't just about her being busy or tired. It felt like she stopped seeing me altogether. Family dinners became a thing of the past. Those little moments we used to share, talking about our day, watching TV together, laughing over inside jokes, they disappeared completely, and I kept trying. Even though it was obvious I wasn't part of this new family dynamic, I kept working hard in school, helping out, doing my best to make myself useful. But it didn't matter. I wasn't a priority anymore. By the time I was 16, things finally boiled over. One evening, my mom and Leonard called me into the living room saying they needed to have a serious conversation. I knew it wasn't going to be good. I could feel it in the air before they even opened their mouths. They sat me down, and Leonard did most of the talking, laying out all the numbers, like I was supposed to feel bad for them. Things were getting tight financially with the twins, he said. Expenses had gone up, and they couldn't afford to support everyone in the house anymore. And then my mom looked at me and said something I'll never forget. They deserve more. Not, we'll figure it out. Not, we're in this together. Just a clear message. I was nothing to them. I didn't argue. What was the point? I went to my room, packed up what little I had, some clothes, a few personal things, and walked out the door. I didn't even look back. I went straight to my grandparents' house. They didn't hesitate to take me in, but they were furious. My grandpa paced the room, muttering under his breath about how he couldn't believe his daughter would do this. My grandma just hugged me tightly, shaking her head. They wanted to confront my mom, but they didn't want to cut her off completely, mostly because of the twins. And I understood. The twins were innocent in all of this. They didn't ask to be born, and they definitely didn't ask to become the center of my mom's world at my expense. I couldn't blame them, even if I was angry at the situation. That day was a turning point for me. The day I realized I couldn't rely on my mom anymore. At 16, I wasn't just a teenager figuring out life. I was on my own. It was terrifying, but I didn't have a choice. Living with my grandparents was a relief, but it wasn't easy. They gave me a roof over my head, but they were retired, living on a fixed income, and couldn't provide everything I needed. So I got my first job at a local coffee shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough for school supplies, clothes, and the basics. Balancing work and school was brutal. I'd get home late, try to finish homework, and wake up early to do it all over again. My grades slipped a little, but I stayed on track to graduate. And my mom, she didn't check in at all. It was like I'd stopped existing. Every now and then I'd hear through family gossip that she and Leonard were doing just fine. The twins were thriving. They had their nice house, their new cars, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. How two people with decent jobs couldn't afford 3 kids. I wasn't asking for luxuries. I just needed the basics. Meanwhile, I was working nights and weekends to survive, juggling homework and shifts, barely keeping my head above water. It wasn't about the expenses. They just didn't want me anymore. By my senior year, college acceptance letters started rolling in. I was excited, but terrified. I knew there was no way I could afford college on my own. I needed help. Against my better judgment, I reached out to my mom. I remember sitting in my grandparents' kitchen late at night, phone in hand, trying to figure out how to word the text. My brain kept spinning with different ways to ask for help without sounding desperate. I must have deleted and rewritten it 10 times before finally sending. Hey, I've been accepted to a few colleges. I was wondering if you could help me with financial aid stuff or co-sign a loan. I hit send and immediately regretted it. Not because it was wrong to ask, but because deep down, I already knew the answer. Still, a tiny, stupid part of me held on to hope. Maybe she'd remember I was her kid too. Her reply came hours later. We're saving for the twins' future. We can't help. Sorry. That was it. No congrats. No, we're proud of you. Just a flat rejection. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Or maybe it just hurt more than I wanted to admit. I stared at the message, trying to process how someone could shut down their own kid like that. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was the complete lack of care. I put the phone down, trying to swallow the lump in my throat, but the tears came anyway. I wasn't mad at the twins. They didn't choose any of this, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been cast aside. Thankfully, my aunt stepped in when I told her what happened. She didn't hesitate. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I'll co-sign your loans. You just focus on making this work, okay?" She didn't have to. She had her own responsibilities and kids to take care of, but she believed in me. She told me she always knew I'd go far, and honestly, that belief hit harder than the offer itself. That day I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't let her down. I'd work my ass off, not just for me, but to prove her faith wasn't misplaced. My mom might have slammed the door shut, but my aunt, she flung it wide open. College was no joke. I hustled nonstop. Campus jobs, weekend shifts, side gigs, anything to keep myself afloat. I even taught myself web design and started freelancing for small businesses. It paid well, and I had bills to cover. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but I didn't care. I had a goal, and nothing was going to stop me. And my mom, still radio silence. No texts, no calls, no, "How are you?" Every now and then, I'd stumble across her social media posts. Pictures of the twins at school plays, birthdays, Disney vacations. She looked so carefree. Those posts felt like daggers. So I blocked her. I couldn't keep torturing myself with a life I wasn't part of. When graduation came, I invited my aunt. She showed up beaming, front row, cheering the loudest when my name was called. My mom? I didn't even bother asking. She didn't deserve to celebrate a success she'd done nothing to help me achieve. After graduation, the real grind began. I moved to a small city for a job in my field. The pay wasn't great, but it covered my bills and let me start chipping away at my student loans. Those first few years were rough. I lived in a tiny apartment with crappy furniture and worked long hours just to prove myself. I poured everything I had into that job, staying late to finish projects, volunteering for tasks no one else wanted, and grabbing every opportunity to learn something new. Slowly, it started paying off. I got a promotion, then another. By my late 20s, I was finally in a good place. I'd paid off a big chunk of my loans, upgraded to a decent apartment, and for the first time in my life, I had some savings. It felt like I was finally getting ahead. My relationship with my mom was still non-existent. I didn't reach out, and neither did she. Every so often I'd hear through relatives that she'd asked about me, but it never went anywhere. She had her family, I had my life. The hardest part was finally accepting that she wasn't going to change. Some part of me had always held on to the hope that one day she'd reach out, apologize, or at least acknowledge how she'd treated me. But that day never came, so I stopped expecting it. Fast forward to when I turned 30. I was in upper management, making more money than I ever thought I would. I kept it quiet. No social media posts, no big announcements. I didn't even tell most of my family. I knew what kind of drama it would attract. The only person I told was my aunt, the one who co-signed my loans. She was proud of me. She told me so every time we talked. Unfortunately, at a family gathering, she let it slip to my mom. She meant well. She's always been the peacemaker. But that one little comment set off a chain reaction I wasn't ready for. A few days later, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I looked through the peephole. It was my mom and Leonard. I hadn't seen them in years, and I couldn't think of a single good reason for them to be standing on my doorstep. I opened the door, but didn't step aside to let them in. "What's going on?" I asked. Leonard didn't bother with pleasantries. "We need to talk," he said, shoving his way past me like he owned the place. My mom followed him in without so much as a hello. "We heard about your promotion," Leonard started, his tone sharp, matter of fact. "So you're finally doing something with yourself. Good for you. About time, really. No congratulations, no small talk. Just straight to insults." "Okay," I said slowly. My mom jumped in. "The twins are starting college soon, and we've hit a bit of a rough patch financially. We figured, since you're doing so well now, you could help out with their expenses." I don't remember my exact expression, but I know I was just trying to process what was happening. After years of silence, after everything they'd put me through, they had the nerve to show up at my door asking for money. "Are you serious?" I finally said. "Why wouldn't we be?" Leonard shot back. "You're making good money now, aren't you? Don't act like you can't afford it. You don't have kids, you don't have a family to take care of, you've got the money." "It's not about whether I can afford it," I said, my voice rising. "It's about the fact that you two have done absolutely nothing for me, and now you're standing here asking for a handout like I owe you something." My mom rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go," she said, throwing her hands up. "You're going to play the victim again. Poor you. We didn't coddle you enough. You've been holding on to this grudge for years. And for what? Look at you. You turned out fine." "Yeah," I snapped, "because I worked my ass off, with no help from either of you. Do you have any idea how hard it was to get through college without a co-signer, without any financial support? I made it happen, but not because of you, in spite of you." Leonard smirked. "Oh, come on. Stop acting like you had it so rough. You've got a good job now, don't you? A nice place to live. Maybe you should be thanking us. If we hadn't pushed you out, you wouldn't be where you are today." "Thanking you?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You threw me out because I wasn't convenient anymore. You made it clear I didn't matter to you. And now you're here expecting me to swoop in and save the day for the kids you actually cared about? Absolutely not." My mom's tone turned icy. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "I raised you on my own, worked my ass off to keep you alive, to give you everything you needed. And now, look at you. You've got everything you need, and all we're asking for is a little help. They're your siblings. You owe them that much, after everything I've done for you." It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like I should be ashamed for not immediately bending over backward for her and the twins. "I don't owe them anything," I shot back. "And I definitely don't owe either of you. You decided I wasn't worth your time or your money, and now you want me to put my life on hold for them? That's not happening." Leonard stepped closer, his face hard. "You know what your problem is? You've always thought you were more important than you actually are. You think you're better than everyone else just because you made it out on your own. But let me tell you something. You didn't mean anything to this family then, and you don't mean anything now." That hit me like a gut punch, but I didn't let it show. "Then why are you here?" I said coldly. "If I don't mean anything to you, why are you standing in my living room begging for money?" My mom snapped. "Because we didn't want to come here. Do you think we enjoy asking you for help? But the twins deserve a future, and if you weren't so goddamn selfish, you'd see that. But no, you're too busy playing the wounded child to do anything for anyone but yourself." I laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about selfish? You threw your own kid out of the house to make room for your real family. You told me I wasn't worth the effort, and now you want to talk about what the twins deserve? They deserve better parents. That's not my problem." Leonard jabbed a finger at me, his voice rising. "You better watch your mouth. We're still your family, whether you like it or not. And family helps family." "No," I said firmly. "Family doesn't do what you did to me. Family doesn't throw their kid out like trash and then come crawling back when they need money. You're not my family, you're strangers to me." My mom's face twisted in anger. "Fine, be a selfish little brat, but don't come crying to us when your life falls apart. You think you're so much better than us. But you're nothing. You'll always be nothing. That was it. If you don't leave right now, I said, pulling out my phone, I'm calling the police. Leonard scoffed. Go ahead. Call them. See how that looks. Throwing your own parents out of your house. You're not my parents, I said calmly, my finger hovering over the screen. Not anymore. My mom grabbed his arm, muttering something under her breath. You're going to regret this, she said, as they turned to leave. No, I said, shutting the door behind them. I'm not, and for the first time, I realized just how much I'd changed. The kid who desperately wanted their approval was gone. I didn't owe them anything, and I wasn't going to let them guilt me into thinking otherwise. After they left, I honestly thought that was the end of it. I'd made it crystal clear they weren't welcome in my life, and I was ready to move on. But people like them, they don't take no for an answer. A couple of weeks later, I found out from my coworkers that my mom had shown up at my office. I wasn't even there. I'd taken a sick day, but apparently she caused quite the scene. She marched in, demanded to speak with me, and when she was told I wasn't there, she refused to leave. She started shouting about family and sacrifices and how I owed her. Security had to escort her out. The next day, one of my coworkers pulled me aside to tell me how uncomfortable it had been for everyone. I apologized, embarrassed and angry. I went straight to HR and told them to add her to the do not admit list for the building. Still, I was shaken. I couldn't believe she'd stooped that low, but the worst was yet to come. About a week later, I pulled into my driveway after work, and there she was, pacing back and forth, clearly agitated. The moment I stepped out of my car, she stormed over, jabbing a finger at me. You can't keep ignoring me, she snapped. I kept my distance. What are you doing here? We need to talk, she said, her tone dripping with authority like I was still a child. You think you can just walk away from your family, from your responsibilities? What responsibilities? I shot back. You're the parent, not me. The twins are your kids. You're the one who's supposed to figure this out, well, not me. That set her off. She started screaming about how I was selfish, ungrateful, how I owed her for everything she'd done. I sacrificed so much for you, she shouted. And this is how you repay me? By turning your back on us? You didn't sacrifice anything for me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Go back to the home you kicked your son out of, and don't show up here again. Her voice went from loud to hysterical. She was yelling so loudly that neighbors started coming outside to see what was going on. She's a brat, she screamed, pointing at me like she was exposing some villain. He's always been a selfish little brat who doesn't care about anyone but himself. A couple of neighbors tried to calm her down, but she wasn't listening. Her voice only got louder, her gestures wilder. And then she lunged at me. After everything I've done for you, she screamed. Stay back, I warned, pulling out my phone. I mean it, Mom. Don't you dare. Her face twisted in rage as she tried to grab the phone from my hand. Don't you dare call the police on your own mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you. You abandoned me, I shouted, holding my phone out of her reach, trying to keep distance between us. You threw me away like I was nothing. It didn't even feel like I was arguing with my mom anymore. It was like I was facing a stranger wearing her face. Through the chaos, I heard one of my neighbors yelling, I'm calling the police! Leave him alone! More neighbors came out, watching this surreal scene of a mother physically going after her own child. Finally, someone stepped in and pulled her back just as the sound of sirens filled the air. She kept struggling, screaming incoherently, but it was over. The flashing lights rolled up, and I stood there shaking, realizing just how far she'd gone and how much I could never let her back into my life. The next morning, I went straight to the police station and filed a report. I explained everything, the workplace incident, her showing up at my house, the screaming match, the physical lunge. The officer I spoke with was sympathetic and helped me start the process of getting a restraining order. When I told my grandparents what had happened, they were furious. She's lost her mind, my grandpa said, shaking his head. We should have done more for you back then, my grandma added, guilt heavy in her voice. We thought we were helping by staying close, but we let you face too much on your own. I'm so sorry. I told them it wasn't their fault. They'd done the best they could. They were the only reason I'd had any stability after my mom kicked me out. But they made it clear. They were done with her. We've stood by her through everything, my grandpa said. But this is the last straw. We're cutting ties. It was bittersweet. On one hand, it felt like validation. They finally saw her for who she was. On the other, it hurt to know just how far she'd fallen and how little she'd cared about anyone but herself. A few weeks later, the restraining order was granted, and for the first time in years, my life started to feel calm again. With the restraining order in place, life finally started to settle down. I poured myself into my career, my home, and the people who truly mattered. My grandparents, my aunt, and my close friends. My aunt especially was my rock. She hadn't just stepped in when things got hard, she stayed, and she never made me feel like I owed her for it. A few months after things calmed down, I decided to do something for her, not to repay her. You can't put a price on the kind of loyalty she showed me, but to let her know how much she meant to me. I didn't just hand her money, I planned it out. I made sure it was enough to cover a weekend getaway for her and her family, something she'd always dreamed about but never prioritized because she was too busy putting everyone else first. When I handed her the envelope, she looked confused at first. Then she opened it and gasped. "What is this?" she asked, her voice shaky. "It's for you," I said simply. "You've always been there for me. You didn't have to, but you did. You deserve something good, something just for you." Her eyes welled up. She shook her head. "You didn't have to do this. I didn't help you because I wanted anything in return." "I know," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "That's why you deserve it even more." She hugged me tight, and for the first time in years, I felt the kind of love and support I'd been chasing my whole life. She didn't just see me, she valued me. Meanwhile, every so often, I'd hear bits and pieces about my mom and Leonard. Their finances were falling apart, and the twins were barely scraping through college. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel anything. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. For years, I'd carried the weight of wanting their approval, hoping they'd finally see me as someone who mattered. Now, I understood they never would, and that was okay. I didn't need their validation anymore. I saw my own worth now, and I'd surrounded myself with people who saw it too. I'd built a life I was proud of, one filled with people who genuinely cared about me. And most importantly, I'd learned that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by the ones who show up, the ones who stand by you, the ones who love you for who you are, not for what they can take from you. As for my mom, I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, but I'm done being her solution. I'm done being her sacrifice. My life is my own now, and I'm not looking back. I honestly thought that was the end of it, that I'd closed the door on that part of my life for good. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the twins reached out. It started with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Max. Can we talk? I'd like to get to know you. You're my brother, and I don't know you at all." I just stared at the message for a long time. Max and I barely knew each other. When I left home, the twins were still little kids. After everything my mom and Leonard had done, there was no relationship to salvage. Part of me wondered if this was just some new ploy from my mom. But the way Max worded his message, it felt different. After a while, I replied, "What's this about?" A few minutes later, my phone rang. I hesitated before answering. "Hey," he said, his voice a little nervous. "I know this is random, but I wanted to reach out. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, and I feel like I missed out on something important. You're my brother, and I don't know anything about you. I hate that." I didn't say much, so he kept going. "I know what Mom and Dad did to you. I didn't understand it when I was a kid, but I do now. I don't think it was right. Honestly, I think it was horrible, and I don't blame you for walking away. But I hate that their choices kept us from having a relationship. That's on them, not you." His words caught me off guard. I hadn't expected him to be so direct about it. "Max, none of this was your fault," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't make the choices they made." "I know," he said, "but it doesn't make it easier. I feel like I missed out on having an older brother, and now that I'm old enough to understand everything, I want to at least try to fix that. I know I can't undo what they did, but I'd like to get to know you, if you're open to it." I leaned back, unsure of what to say. For years, I'd carried the weight of feeling like I didn't matter to my family. But here was Max, reaching out, acknowledging the truth, and asking for a chance to build something different. "Why now?" I asked. "Why reach out after all this time?" "Honestly, because I don't want us to be strangers forever. I'm not asking you to forgive Mom or Dad, and I'm not making excuses for them. I just want to know you. That's it." His tone was so genuine, it was hard not to feel moved. "I've spent a long time trying to move on from all of this," I said finally. "It's not easy for me to open that door again." "I get that," he said quickly, "and I'm not asking for anything big. I just want a chance to talk to you, maybe see if we can have some kind of relationship. You're my brother, and I'd like to know who you are." I sat there, weighing my options. The twins hadn't been responsible for what happened. They hadn't made the decisions that tore everything apart. And if Max was willing to put in the effort, maybe it was worth meeting him halfway. "All right," I said. "We can start with a conversation." His relief was obvious. "Thank you," he said. "That's all I'm asking. I just want to start somewhere." We ended the call shortly after, but I kept thinking about it the rest of the night. Max reaching out wasn't something I ever expected. and it left me with a strange mix of emotions I couldn't quite sort through. The truth was, I'd spent so long seeing the twins as part of the family that cast me aside. But Max made me realize they were as much victims of my mom and Leonard's selfishness as I was. They didn't choose this, any more than I did. I'm still cautious. I've built a life I'm proud of, and I'm not eager to reopen old wounds. But Max's effort feels genuine. He didn't try to guilt me. He didn't make excuses. He just wanted to know me. And for the first time, I feel like maybe, just maybe, I could have a relationship with someone from that side of the family. It's a small step, but it feels like progress.